What's up, everybody? It's Colin Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's wrestling channel, and I'm finally getting around to posting my take on Summerslam 2018. It happened August 19th, 2018 at Barclays in Brooklyn, NYC, USA. I guess that leads to my first comment and gripe about the show. Is I'm going to try and make this Nitro's take as quick as possible, because the runtime of the show, if you sat through from say pre-show right on to the end, and then of course there were major developments the next night on Raw as well. About 7, 8, 9 hours plus over 2 days of main roster content that you have to stomach. Man, that is a lot. Justifying that, you had the 2-hour pre-show, the 4-hour pay-per-view, and then the 3 hours of Raw the next night. If you chose to watch Raw, and of course with the main event, how it ended last night on Raw with a huge, I'm recording this on Tuesday, how it ended with a huge development. That's a lot of time to devote. It's not like an NXT takeover where you can sit down and catch up on it, during the evening when you get back from going out, or, the next morning type thing. This was an undertaking for sure. It took me about 4 or 5 separate tries to get through the entire card for SummerSlam, and then I just skimmed through Raw last night. I'm on WWE content overload right now, but that's and I'll go ahead and say that right now. That is the major negative I'm taking out of this show on the weekend. Is just it was too much stuff over a weekend. You can do this once a year with a WrestleMania. I understand that's your Super Bowl, but to do that with your major pay-per-views about 3 or 4 times a year, it's not. It's just not feasible. Even for the hardcore fan, we're clamoring for other stuff to do. I know it's designed for the PVR generation now, and that stuff. For if you can pause it after, say, Strowman Owens or something like that, and go on and do something for 2 or 3 hours, and then come back and you watch the Smackdown Women's title match. It's just, that's my major knock, and it'll be the thing that really affects the end rating of the show this time around, is just the length of it and the amount of time that you had to devote to it. Anyways, going forward, I really liked the pre-show. I think this was my favorite pre-show that I've seen since WrestleMania 33, which is my all-time favorite current WWE pre-show that ran. Not just because I was there live, but I went back and I rewatched it, on the network after the event aired, obviously. And that card was solid for the 3 matches that they had on that pre-show, which was, the Cruiserweight title with 2 guys who aren't with the company now, Aries and Neville. The Andre the Giant and Ambrose and Corbin. I think that was for the US title off of Smackdown. And that was, I think, just all 3 of those matches were just, as Taz would say, rocket busters. This pre-show was good. We had Cien Almas and Zelina Vega defeating Rusev and Lana in a mixed tag to continue that storyline. What will happen with Rusev Day? Cedric Alexander defeated Drew Gulak in the match that I was most excited to see on the pre-show for the Cruiserweight title. God help me, I'm devoted to 205 Live. I think that stuff might happen there in the future that will still help save that show, but yeah, it's kind of in dire circumstances right now, isn't it? And then the most fascinating of them all, it was the B team, Axel and Dallas defeating the Revival for the Raw Tag Team titles, while they retained their Raw Tag Team titles with that incredible streak of luck. Now, the next night on Raw, it seemed as though the luck ran out, but they were just singles matches, or if you're an old school wrestling fan, captains matches, one-on-one encounters and that stuff. But so it sounds like they're leading to some sort of rematch with the Revival and the B team. And maybe the Revival actually gets the tag belts this time. They looked really strong on Monday Night Raw. But, on the SummerSlam pre-show, the B team eked it out and got they were over huge with the crowd. Again, hate the music though. The music is, they need to go back to the original music for the B team. Battle Scars was a great track. I don't understand why they moved away from that though with the Spirit Squad rip-off. Main card, my vote for match of the night was the Rollins Ziggler Intercontinental title match. 30 minutes of just pure action. This thing would have been a blistering main event on Monday Night Raw. It was arguably the best match on the card. I enjoyed the pacing between both Ziggler and Rollins throughout. McIntyre and Ambrose on the outside as the quote-unquote quartermen or enforcers for both guys, I thought was an awesome ad. And, that just plays into what happened the next night on Raw a little bit too, where we had Ambrose defeat Ziggler, and then later on in the main event, get involved in the main event with the reuniting, as they're going to kick off with the Shield reuniting again for the third time, I think. Second time, third time. And but the Intercontinental title match is the one match you need to see from this card. I loved it. I thought it was great. The crowd was into it. It was a hell of a really hot opening match for the pay-per-view. And that was... is it the sleeper for maybe match of the year? I mean, I don't think it'll win, but I think you got to throw that match into the discussion on the WWE side. I think that one was a lot of fun, told a great story, back and forth action. What more could you ask for out of that? Then we had New Day versus the Bludgeon Brothers for the Smackdown Live Tag Team Championships. They got disqualified for using the mallet in the match, and of course New Day ended up with the victory rolling out of it. First squash of the night, Braun Strowman retains his Money in the Bank contract by defeating Kevin Owens, and I thought it was great on top of it too that we did not see Owens at all on Monday Night Raw the next night. It was a good build, so I'm not sure then if, because I haven't looked at anything this week, busy with life and stuff with the other channels and that stuff, work, etc. If Owens is taking time off due to injury, due to health, whatever, but if he is, that was the perfect way for him to go out. Strowman is just this unstoppable monster. You can't beat him. He's Mr. Money in the Bank right now. And a huge, massive part, as we saw on Raw, of this main event scene coming up with Reigns as Universal Champion. Yeah, spoiler alert, but whatever, if you haven't seen it by now. It always pops the crowd when Strowman squashes a guy, especially a main roster person, and this was, I think, not an excellent bookend to the Owens-Strowman feud of the summer, but it was a definite result. We'll put it that way. SmackDown Women's title, Charlotte Flair defeated Carmella and Becky Lynch. So Charlotte Flair is the new women's champion. The big thing coming out of that is we probably are going to see a heel Becky Lynch on SmackDown. This will be very interesting because in the Indies, back in her Shimmer days and on the Indies and NWA Supergirls, etc., all the different federations and that's what she had worked for, she worked as Rebecca Knox, and Rebecca Knox was most of the time a heel in matches, and she was phenomenal. So I think the WWE Universe is going to be pleasantly surprised with what they see with Becky as a heel, should they go down that route. And I don't think there's any question that they are going down that route this way. I think she's going to be a strong heel, and I think Charlotte has her opponent for Evolution then. I think we're going to have a match obviously for SmackDown Women's title, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. Roles reversed. Charlotte's always been the heel when they've faced off in the past, but now we've got Becky Lynch in the heel role, and I'm excited to see it. Sure. And Carmella, she had a great run as women's champion for SmackDown. Time to move her on. Time to have her expand out to bigger and better things, I think. WWE title match, Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. Man, what a cerebral feud between these two. It was so much fun watching these guys get a big spot in SummerSlam. I watched these guys at an independent show back in the day, about 2007, 2008 or so, and both those guys were in the midst of their TNA run at that point, and they were a fantastic match to watch then. This was a fantastic match, in my opinion. It was up there with the Rollins-Ziggler match as my favorite of the night. I'll give the nod to Rollins-Ziggler, though, just because it had a lot more pacing to it and that stuff. This storyline, I think, is got the potential to be fantastic. I think all the seeds have been kind of planted a little bit here. It's the old "who's your daddy, who's your poppy" storyline, it seems like, or it's just head games from Samoa Joe, which, you know, the WWE version of Samoa Joe loves to do. So going forward, I'm actually not excited, but I'm really intrigued to see what goes on going forward in the storyline. And the way that the match ended with just AJ just losing it kind of helped reinforce that. That is just, now you got a case of, you know, your champion or your brand maybe getting unhinged a little bit because of the mind games that was going on. So I'm interested to see what's going on. I'm not excited. I'm just really stammering a little bit. I'm interested in what's going to happen. Next match was the one 8 years in the making. Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. Well, 8 years since their last pay-per-view match against each other. Miz got the win. You kind of expected that, and as predicted, you have to expect that they're going to have a matchup at Hell in a Cell. There's just been so much built, you know, especially in the last 3 or 4 weeks, that they're going to try and carry that on. There was no way that this match was going to match the hype, because you've had, you know, how many months and years of just verbal chatter amongst the two characters and that stuff, that, you know, anything short of a nuclear war between both of them would have been, you know, disappointing. So what we got is what we got. It was a very passable match. I think it would have been a decent SmackDown television main event, but, you know, for a pay-per-view of SummerSlam's caliber, it kind of was a little lackluster a little bit. And it was, you know, an entertaining match, but I didn't see really anything uber special about it. If anything, it just reaffirms Miz as one of the top heels, which is, I think, what they wanted to do out of that. So, Demon Finn Balor returns to beat Baron Corbin. Oh, that was quite the pop from the Brooklyn crowd, and of course, that's a character that has ties to NXT and the Brooklyn, the Barclays Center, and that whole SummerSlam weekend thing that sadly this was the last year for, just due to the fact that they're hosting WrestleMania next year. So, you know, bringing back the Demon, you know, really cool. I think Coachman kind of ruined it in commentary a little bit, though. I think he asked during the match, it's like, why doesn't he do that more often? Well, creative. You know, with the fan base would love for him to bust out the Demon character at every pay-per-view or every second pay-per-view, you know, if he's in a blood feud with somebody. But, you know, creative has kind of had him stifled in this kind of mid-Raw, mid-show mentality for, you know, almost a year now. So it was refreshing to see him get the main event spot the next night on Raw. It was too bad that he was kind of used as the afterthought and not really involved in the decision with Strowman and the Shield and Reigns at the end of the show. Well, not the decision, but the whole Shield coming back and that stuff. At least, you know, maybe have him in the ring and maybe have the Shield, you know, dispose of him somehow or something. Maybe with Ambrose with dirty deeds or something like that. Just to lay waste with the, you know, to give the illusion that they're laying waste to the entire locker room or something. But that seems to be, you know, kind of the role that Balor's been pigeonholed in over the last year or so. So it might be a start. Hopefully it is. to have him back towards the main event scene a little bit. With Reigns as Universal Champion now, it kind of does open up the door a little bit for some unique and new matchups, you know, because you don't have to worry about, okay, who the hell is going to face Brock every 3 months now going forward. I think now you can saddle up the belt with Reigns for a little bit throughout the fall, at least, and into the winter, maybe even up to Rumble, and have him face different opponents every month on the Raw brand. And come in, like, you know, the Balors. Obviously, Strowman's going to get a crack at it, etc. But, you know, seeing the Demon back was good. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Shinsuke Nakamura and Jeff Hardy. Oh my God, the swanton from Hardy from the ring post onto the ring apron. Ouch. That was my ouch moment of the night where Nakamura moved. This match, too, did the job that it needed to in putting Nakamura over. I thought that Nakamura was doing a more than credible job as a heel on Smackdown. It kind of sucks that he has been kind of relegated out of the WWE title picture for the moment, but they do have a belt on him. It's a U.S. belt, so, you know, champion of the mid-card on Smackdown. For Nakamura right now isn't a bad thing. It's a good fit on him. And the match he had with Hardy was very passable. Again, another potential main event for any SmackDown television show. And it was kind of the main event for SummerSlam for SmackDown, as it was the SmackDown, or it was the latest match on the card from SmackDown Live, going into the two big advertised title matches that they were really hyping on the pay-per-view. And there's no closed circuit anymore. The network, the streaming network, yeah, WWE Network, that's it. And geez, that was you know, Nakamura as U.S. champion. Would love to see him back in the world title picture, but with Joe and AJ going at it, I think Nakamura would just be, you know, unless anything short of a triple threat, you know, match, which that would be great. I don't see it really happening right now. So, you know, have him as U.S. champ, lay out of the picture for a little bit, but I'd love to see him back in that world title picture, that WWE title picture, sooner rather than later. Ronda Rousey becoming the Raw Women's Champion and defeating Alexa Bliss. I thought, honestly, that they would hold off on this for a little bit. I think that they might have been spurred by really creating a little bit of a pop going into the fall here, for maybe subscriptions, maybe getting people eyes on the product, etc., by putting the belt on Rousey. Right now, I've expected this maybe as maybe a WrestleMania thing next year, have her kind of fight for a year, and then finally get her crack at a women's champion at WrestleMania next year. But it seems like one of the rumored matches is a potential main event match between her and Charlotte Flair. So if that's the case, then obviously, well, right now, if they continue with the Survivor Series thing, they would meet at Survivor Series. You know, the Raw Women's Champion and the SmackDown Women's Champion. So no doubt before then, if that's the case, if they're planning on doing that at Mania, one of the two will lose the Women's Championship prior to. My guess probably would be Charlotte over on the SmackDown side, just because if they want to really pop Ronda as this unstoppable thing, I think they'd probably have a heel champion on the SmackDown side to face her at Survivor Series. Maybe that's Becky, which could be very entertaining to have Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. That's a potential thing. But the match itself here was, you know, it was another squash, effectively, because, you know, you had Bliss, and they've built Bliss up to be essentially the next Trish Stratus. And I know she's got that match at the women's pay-per-view against Trish, but you know, nothing kind of devalues it more than just having her essentially job out in 5 or 6 minutes to you know, the UFC champ or the former UFC champ, UFC Hall of Famer. So it kind of tarnishes Bliss a little bit, in my opinion, but not overly. Bliss will get the belt back somewhere down the line. It's just a matter of time and situation and that stuff. But I thought the match was okay for what it was. Rousey had a great presentation, great story with Natalya coming back. And yeah, so that's going forward. Remains to be seen, right? Reigns defeating Lesnar for the Universal Championship. Again, matter of time. Lesnar taking off to do that. Training camps for his fight with Cormier in UFC. So Reigns gets the belt for the fall. We'll see it probably defended more often because that's Reigns' thing, is he wants to defend it more often. We saw it the next night defended on Raw against Finn Balor. You know, both nights in both matches there was the threat of Braun Strowman cashing in. Couldn't get it done on SummerSlam, and then looked like was just about to cash in on Monday Night Raw. Didn't get it done because the Shield reunited, and looks like they're going to try and pick up where they left off with Ambrose's injury with the Shield reuniting. However, that wasn't really working great when that left off last year. Late 2017 when that happened. Go back into our year in review stuff that I did with Morehouse earlier this year with 2017 to find out about that. Actually, there's a whole separate video listed above. I forget the exact title of it, but myself and Morehouse talked, not at great length, but a few minutes about that and how it was probably one of the worst reunited faction angles that we've seen in wrestling for a while. So ultimately, I'm going to give SummerSlam a 6.5 out of 10. Again, the length made it unbearable. The show itself was way too long. It made it incredibly hard to watch, incredibly hard to review. So I'm sorry if things are disjointed. I just felt that this was the best way to present this to you guys. And yeah, they need to definitely frickin' rethink this 4-hour major show thing. I know they got advertisers and stuff now on the network, but you know, with TakeOver being as great as it was the night before, and that was your classic 3-hour, if it was even 3-hour show, I didn't even time it out. I just went and, you know, watched it from front to back and was thoroughly entertained by it. And for it to be followed up the next night by this, meh. So anyways, I'm Kellen Nitro. Later days. Happy wrestling watching. Thanks for your patience as I got this up. And if you stuck with us this long, thank you. This went longer than I figured it would. But I do hope you enjoy. Happy wrestling watching. Later days. And I guess the next one will be a real fun one because the next Nitro take is due to be All In. That's right. At the end of the month on September 1st. Again, that'll be a one that will probably be delayed by a couple of days just due to real life and some other things I got going on. But I'll definitely have some thoughts about that because it's probably the most interestingly built show that we've seen in maybe 10 or 15 years or so, just through the promotion of it. So anyways, talk to you guys later. See ya.